or morning, folks, or afternoon. Uh, so here we are. We're going to do it online only. Craziness. So this is our first EQ lesson. I've got several. I'm going to take a long, what would be a long class day, 4 hours long, and I'm going to separate it out into a bunch of smaller bits, right? So I've sent you guys some stuff. I've put it up on, what's it called? Blackboard. I hope you guys can use Blackboard. I know some of you don't like it. I'm not a huge fan, but if you want, I can always email you some of the files, and so I'll do that too. All right. So let me show you what I have prepared for you guys. I've sent on Blackboard. I'll send an email as well. I've sent you a handout. Let me show you where it is. Right here. It's in the COVID folder. EQ lesson. Here it is. Let's see here. I've sent you a couple of things, right? Actually, take a look. There's EQ lesson PDF, right? I've also sent you a cool EQ chart, right? Let me open up this one here. Actually, before I do that, let me show you some stuff here. I've put some stuff up on Blackboard, and it's a session that you guys can mess with if you have the gear. I realize that not everybody's got Pro Tools, not everybody's got a DAW or even a computer, or you can do stuff online. So what I've done, pardon me, I'm looking at a different screen, so I'm not looking at you guys. I've put this stuff online. So it's a Pro Tools session, and for those of you who don't have Pro Tools but do have a DAW like Ableton or Cubase or something like that, I've got just the audio files themselves, right? And then you can arrange it, and you'll see here in a second, right? So right here, right, I've sent a zip file, right? So what you're going to be looking for is this zip, right? Or this zip right here, if you got Pro Tools, right? And I'm hoping that you guys are going to be able to fart around with this stuff. This is kind of like your homework, right? This video and that stuff is kind of like your homework. Like I said in the email, I realize that not everybody's got, DAW and all that kind of stuff. So we'll do the best we can, and I'll try to show you as best as I possibly can in these videos what to do, right? So some of this is going to be review for some of you guys, right? And in this session, some of you have actually seen this before, maybe in audio 1, but it'll be a little bit of review, right? So my plan is to, over this EQ lesson, is to do a little bit of recap, go over a handout or two, and then I'm going to run that session and kind of show you how to do it, right? And kind of show you how I work EQs. And then what I'm also going to do is pull up a session later on, right? So let's look at this. I'm going to show you this EQ chart. It's kind of cool. Pull this guy up here, all right? Let me move this over. Put it over there. Look at that. This is a really cool EQ chart, right? So it shows you some of the common instruments, right? Some of them are, here we go, all right? So you see there male and female vocals, right? And kind of the frequency ranges, right? And then you see, kick and snare and, toms, all sorts of stuff, right? Tuba, French horn. You could scroll all the way down right here, right? You kind of see, it's kind of cool. And this is kind of like a guide. And so down here, right, in this area, I guess you can hopefully you can see my mouse right there, right? So kind of down in this area right here, it kind of shows you, the common things people say, can you make it sound warmer? And so what they're saying here is kind of around 160 or so. That's warm. 100 to 160 hertz is most people say it's warm. Edge over here, 4K, 5K, that sort of stuff, right? This is kind of how people sort of perceive things, right? And down here, this sort of gives you the Fletcher-Munson curve, right? If you guys remember that from Audio 1. And here, this is actually kind of cool, this part down here. So you can look for an instrument, right? For example, bass, right? You can come over here to bass. Fundamental notes of the rhythm section, right? Is that making sense? Right? EQ, increase to make it sound fatter. So that's kind of cool, right? So it kind of gives you snare. Here's a typical one, right? 900 hertz for the ring, fullness 120 to 240. You guys get the idea, right? Snap, attack, crispiness, right? So this is kind of like a little guideline. And I know that Tim's got something like this in his book, his Audio 1 book. And you've probably seen this in other places. We've got something similar to this on the control room A wall, which you guys may not ever see again. It's crazy. It's crazy to think, right? Man, pretty amazing. All right, so there's there's that chart. Let's move on to this EQ lesson thing here. And let me pull this over to the other monitor for you guys. There we go. All right. So let's talk right quick about the difference between filters and EQ. So that's number 1 up there, right? So EQs and filters, somebody's trying to get a hold of me, right? Oh, by the way, I promise I'm wearing pants. See, jeans. Right? I'm not wearing my pajamas. And I'm actually not at home. I'm at church in the library, and because nobody can use it, because no one's allowed in the building, they've allowed me to come and teach my class here. So that's what all these books are. They're all like, doctrine and stuff. My wife is teaching her. She teaches at Trinity University, and so she's teaching her classes at home. And my daughter is actually getting her classes at home too. So I got kicked out. So here I am. There's no telling where I'm going to be doing the next class. Anyway, so let's take a look up here. Filters versus EQs. So EQs adjust things, right? They make things louder and oh, great. Let me turn that off. Well, you'll just have to put up with it for the moment. Anyway, EQs turn things, make things louder, a certain frequency louder or softer, right? And filters actually eliminate frequencies altogether, right? So if you just don't want it there, filters are the things to do. As a matter of fact, most people, most recording engineers will probably end up using filters more than anything else, right? So filters versus EQs, right? So I like to think of a filter like a coffee filter. It allows the coffee to pass. It holds back the coffee grounds, stuff that you don't want. So a high-pass filter, it allows high frequencies to pass. It eliminates the lows. Why would you use something like that? Well, maybe your studio is close to a bus stop or something like that, right? And you hear a bunch of rumbling sounds, and so you want to get rid of them. And so you put a high-pass filter. Ideally, you'd put it on your microphone rather than on the channel or something like that. So that way, the signal that gets to your mic preamp doesn't have all the rumbling, right? And so the mic preamp is only amplifying the good signal and not the rumbling as well, right? The ACC in control room, the live room in control room A has. I wish I could have shown you. There's actually around 30 hertz downwards to below 20. There is a constant rumble. We don't hear it because of our Fletcher-Munson curve, but it's always there, and it takes away from the mic preamp's ability to amplify stuff, right? I think that's one of the reasons making good recordings in the live room in Studio A is difficult. The other reason you want to use a high pass filter is to get rid of leakage from a kick drum or a bass guitar or anything that has low frequencies, right? And so if you're on a stage, right, if you're recording or maybe you're doing live sound, it's a live thing, everybody's on stage, that bass amp, the kick drum is bleeding into the vocal mics, right? As a matter of fact, they're bleeding into everything, right? And because of the phase issues, it actually makes your kick drum and bass drum sound bad, right? So in order to get, excuse me, in order to get rid of that, make your kick drum sound better instantly, is put high pass filters on all your stuff. And that's how I do. I do a lot of, you guys know, I do a lot of live recordings, and everything except the kick and the bass get high pass filters, right? Some high pass filters are fixed. You don't get a choice. It's whatever they give you. And of course, if you're using a DAW or more advanced boards, like the Neve we have at ACC, there's a knob and it's continuously variable, and you just listen, right? And let's say it's the vocal mic. You take the high pass filter on the vocal mic and you turn it up. You keep sweeping the frequency higher and higher and higher until the bass and the kick drum sound good, right? That's how that works, right? Low pass filter, number 3 there. It allows the lows to pass. It gets rid of the highs. Maybe you're using, and we're going to see this here in a second, maybe you're using, let's say, a microphone to pick up the outside of a kick drum, let's say, right? And it's kind of far away from the kick drum, but it sounds good there, right? And so because it's so far away, it's picking up a lot of the cymbals. So we could use a low pass filter to get rid of the leakage from the cymbals in that kick drum mic, right? How about a notch filter? A notch filter eliminates a narrow band of frequencies. Like, for example, really common is 60 cycle hum that you get from like hum and buzz from the wall socket or whatever, right? So that is 60 cycles is, well, 60 cycle hum, right? Comes from the wall. It's 60 cycles. So you can take your notch filter, tune it to 60 hertz, turn it on, and it'll get rid of a lot of that, right? How about a band pass filter, right? A band pass filter allows only a narrow band of frequencies to pass. It eliminates everything else. So it's kind of like, right? So, man, I wish I could, oh, you know what? Let me think here. I won't do it. I'll show you later. A bandpass filter only allows one small sliver of sound to get through, right? Why would you do something like that? It's almost never a musical thing, right? It's almost usually like forensic audio. I used to do a lot of forensic, not a lot, some forensic audio for like Travis County, for stuff here in New Braunfels. I helped a woman, a real estate agent, bust these guys that were trying to rip her off, basically. But she had a hidden mic inside of her purse, right? And these guys incriminated themselves. But the recording, she gave me this recording that she was going to use as evidence. And it was all muddy because the mic was in her purse, right? So I go in there, I get rid of all the sounds except those frequencies that pertain to the human voice, right? Here's a bandpass filter. And if we scroll down here, a band, so grouping of frequencies. Again, this is all pretty much, review for you guys, right? So just a grouping of frequencies, lows, highs, and mids, whatever, right? So number 7, fixed frequency equalizers. And these are actually, the only thing that you can adjust, of course, is the loudness of a frequency. The frequency is set by the manufacturer, whichever one you're making louder or softer. Now, the Neve at ACC, the very high frequency on that Neve is fixed. You don't get to choose which one it is, right? I can't remember the 2 frequencies, but there's just a little button that you can push, right? I think it's 8K. And when you turn up the super high frequency on the Neve EQ, it's only 8K, right? There's a button that you can switch it to something else, but you guys get the idea. Usually, hopefully, it's somebody like Rupert Neve that knows what they're doing. And they're easy to use, and typically they sound pretty good. They're not very versatile, but they work well. Let's see here, number 8, selectable frequency equalizers. Here the user gets to use, you get a choice of making it louder and softer, right? And then you also get the choice of which frequency gets louder or softer, right? So then, like 60 cycles, I want to turn that down, or I find out that 40 hertz on a kick drum is too boomy. I can turn that down, right? So I just tune it. Let's see here. And then there's a parametric equalizer. Parametric equalizer allows you to adjust how many of the frequencies are included when you turn a specific frequency up or down, right? I think I've told you guys who invented the parametric equalizer, but I'll tell you again. George Massenburg, super famous mixer dude from, I think he invented it in 1972, if I'm not mistaken. So in 1972, when he was 17 years old, he invented the parametric EQ. Kind of amazing. And he still makes that EQ. I'll show you some pictures here in a little bit. Right? And then there's the EQ curves, shelving and peak dip. Right? And I'll have to show you a picture. Let me pull up a Pro Tools session. Here we go. And let's see here. Where is it? Actually, I'll do it this way here. Give me a sec. There you go. Let's try this one right here. Oh, look at that. All right. So let's take a look at some EQs here. All right. So if I come over here and look at an EQ, I'm going to use a one-band EQ. This is just the one that comes with Pro Tools. There it is. Move this thing over. Here we go. So if I come over here, this is a peak dip. Notice it says peak there. Right. So right now it's at 1,000 hertz. If I turn it up, it's just a peak, or if I turn it down, it's a dip. Right. If I turn it to shelving over here, right? You guys with me here? So what that's doing is boosting everything above 1,000, or turning everything above 1,000 down, right? So that's a high shelf. That's a high shelf, right? If I were to come down here and choose this guy here, it's a low shelf. So everything below, right, or everything below 1,000 hertz gets turned down or turned up. So there we go, right? If we take a look here, that is a high-pass filter, right? Here is a low-pass filter. This is a, guess what? A notch filter. And it's almost, if you see a notch filter, it's almost going to look something like that right there, 60 hertz, right? Sometimes 120. Let's see here. What else? I don't know. Let's take a look at this. Let's go back to this guy right here. Again, this is all a bunch of review for you guys, I'm sure. But just so everybody's on the same page, when I boost something at 800 or whatever, let's put it up at 1,000. All right, there we go. I can change the bandwidth or the Q, right? So if I turn it, if I turn the Q down, notice that it gets wider. So a low number, right, A low number like below 1, or somewhere in that area, is a wide bandwidth. Typically, those are going to sound better. Then the higher it gets, the narrower it gets, right? So the way I like to work this is, well, I'll show you how I'm going to work it here in a little bit, right? I'll make that another video, right? But what else do I need to say here? I don't know. There we go. There's a bunch of different EQs, right? I'm going to come over here and choose this guy right here. Look at here, EQs. I've got a bunch on my computer. I'll show you what I've got here. This Pro Tools one isn't too bad. Let me look at this other one here. There's that Pro Tools one right there. All right. Again, that's not too bad either. All right. 5-band. Right. So it's pretty quite versatile. Right. And over here, where my mouse is, I've got a high pass filter and a low pass filter. Typically, I'm using this EQ down here. This is my favorite. I don't know if it's my favorite EQ, but this is my EQ that is probably the most useful. This Fab Filter EQ. We have this at ACC, right? It's pretty cool. And I'm just going to play something here, and here's why this is so cool. So it's actually giving you a picture of the frequency distribution of that guitar right there. And it can kind of give you an idea of what you need to cut or boost, right? Now this is especially important if you're in a room that's kind of weird, and the room is fooling you, kind of like ACC Control Room A, right? It may sound flat to you. You're like, man, that sounds pretty good. But when you look at it, you can kind of see that something like 180, 190 hertz, somewhere in there. It's a little bit, maybe a little bit weird, right? So I like that EQ a lot, right? Let's take a listen to this one here. All right. This is another one. This is a bad. This is a good one. The blue one's good. This green one, watch this. So it sounds funny, right? There's something not quite right with it, right? You can kind of tell where it is, especially if you can compare the two. So it looks like this right here. It's kind of cool. So it actually shows you the result, right? If you notice, there's like two sort of graphs, and it shows you like the result, the original, and it shows you the result. It was pretty cool, right? So again, just about any EQ, especially if it's a parametric EQ, is going to have the same kind of stuff. It's going to have frequency choice, the loudness adjustment, and then over here is going to be the Q, right? It appears to me that I could maybe narrow that out a little bit, right? So you guys with me here, right? So, right? So this is kind of like cheating. So it's cheating, but that's okay. All that matters is that you get the results, right? So there we go. Right, let's try another one. Here's let's listen to this one here, and I'm going to put that same EQ. Let me move it over here. Oops. There you go. Let's listen to that one. Terrible, right? Let's look and see what that EQ is doing, right? Let's look at that. And let's zero this all out here. Zero it out. I'm zeroing it out really quickly by holding Option down, right? And clicking on the control, right? It's kind of obvious what's going on there, right? Look at all this. So what should I do there? Should I use a shelf or should I use a peak dip? I think I'm going to use a shelf because it appears to me it's just the low end is too loud, right? So I'm going to come over here. Actually, let's use a, well, here we go. I'm going to pick a low shelf. Where is it? There it is. I'm going to move it over here where all the stuff is, right? Right, so much better right off the bat. So what I'm going to also do here is I'm going to adjust the where that is, right? So I'm going to move this frequency, and I'm going to listen to see if, if it still sounds good, right? Maybe I can make it sound better. And I want to bypass as well. Maybe move it up a little more. Right? So there we go. Hope that's working for you guys. Right? Something else I want to show you. Let's go back to this guy over here. Right? Now, I'm going to show you something that's specific to Pro Tools. Just about everybody has a similar kind of thing. I call it seek and destroy. Right? I'm going to play this guy right here, the blue one. Oh, actually, it's this guy down here. I'm going to play this guy, and it has that funky frequency, right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go looking for that funky frequency, right? So seek and destroy. On Pro Tools, it's Control and Shift. You hold Control and Shift at the same time, and then you can sweep the frequency selector, and you can kind of go through there and listen. Yeah, right there, huh? So now that I've found the ugliness, right, I turn it down. Maybe make it a little wider. I still hear a little bit of that not so good sound, right? So I'm going to pull this and make it a little wider. Yeah, is that making sense? I hope. So that's how that works, right? Now, what if your DAW or the plugins that you have don't have that, right? Or maybe you're on the analog console. Then there's a couple of ways to approach it, right? Rather than doing seek and destroy with this, with your shortcut, right? With the Control and Shift together, right? What you can do is kind of narrow the band a bit, right? And then I'm going to play, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it down, right? Let me put this way over here. I'm going to turn it down, and when the bad stuff is gone, then I know I've done it right, right? So bad stuff is still there, right? So I'm going to sweep this frequency selector up until it's gone. Easy peasy, right? So the other thing you could do is turn it way up. Right? Again, let me put it way down here. I think this is a little harder. Some people think it's easy, right? But let's try it. Again, I'm listening for the ugliness, right? When the ugliness is really loud, I know I've hit it, right? Ouch, right? There we go. All right, so a bunch of different ways to do that. That's the typical thing, right? I'm going to show you a cool. I'm going to show you a good web page, right? That it's a good way to train your ear, right? Ideally, like if you've taken, I believe, if you've taken Milan's Milan's live sound class, he kind of trains you on this, right? And you can quickly pick out EQ points and frequencies that are annoying or bad or that are getting in the way of other things, right? So even if you don't plan on doing a live sound for doing it for a living, what I suggest you take his class. Good training. Him and Travis too. I don't know much about Travis's live sound, but I'm sure he's doing the same kind of thing. All right. So I don't know. Let's make that the end of video 1. We're going to go on to video 2 here really soon. All right. See ya in a little bit.